Yesterday, Google unveiled their newest venture in technology with the launch of Google Stadia, a digital games streaming service, basically the Netflix of gaming. Based on what was revealed, here are the top 10 negatives that we see in Google Stadia. Issue number 1, no internet, no games. Streaming services are great if your internet works reliably and quickly. If you're dependent on Stadia for your gaming, you're just straight out of luck when your internet dies. If the infrastructure is unreliable, then this service becomes meaningless. In short, if you don't have internet, you're not going to have games, and that's good for nobody. Issue number 2, no game ownership. I'm old enough that when I look back at my gaming career, I still remember CDs and cartridges and having to blow in my N64 cartridges and stuff. I often regret moving to digital copies. Sure, it saves a lot of space, but it means I don't actually own my games. This is highlighted even more with a streaming service. You don't own a game, you just pay for the right to play it. You don't even have the game downloaded on your PC or your console. If your account gets canceled, then you might lose all the games you ever bought on the service, all the items that you bought, all the microtransactions, which you know there are going to be some. You could lose everything if you lose your account. If Google provides all of your games through Stadia, it also means they can take all of your games away, and that's a really big problem. Issue number 3, the tagline with Google Stadia is that it's going to be a gaming platform for everyone. No product in the world is really, truly for everyone. It's a really nice tagline, it's a good marketing piece, but it's not for everyone. It's not possible. What this really means is that it's going to be a streaming platform for casual gamers who have reliable, fast internet and spare time to make the monetization and pricing worthwhile for their gaming habits. So what this is going to look like is, honestly, the game that was shown off at the reveal was Doom Eternal, and that's the type of game that you're going to get when you get Google Stadia. You're going to get mainstream games, largely first-person shooters, and at this point, battle royale games, and they're not going to be more niche games, they're not going to be more interesting games. It's going to be something that's very much watered down. If it's made for everyone, that means it's really made for no one. If it's marketed at everyone, that means it's going to have to be watered down, and no one's really going to get the same amount of customization and enjoyment out of the gaming service. Google Stadia is just another thing for casual gamers, which, if you're a casual gamer, that's fine. But for someone like me who needs something a little bit more specialized, Google Stadia is not going to be right. Issue number 4, the internet becomes your store. This is probably the most worrying statement of the entire presentation. The presentation is obviously a reveal meant for the developers to get them excited about putting their games onto Stadia, putting their games out to many people through Google. This is how Google is going to be attracting the developers. Probably a good revenue share, but they can also literally market any game to where Google operates. This means YouTube, Google Search, Chrome, Chromecast, Google phones, social media platforms, game review websites, etc. There are tons of places that game developers can now attract more players using Google. This means that we're going to have to make sure that we have our ad blocker updated if we don't want to be marketed to everywhere we go. We're going to have games sold to us left, right, and center multiple times a day on multiple platforms everywhere you go. So this is obviously a big problem for those of us who they don't want their entire internet monetized, their YouTube experience monetized even further. This is going to be a problem when the internet is going to be oversaturated with ads for purchasing games on Google Stadia. Issue number 5 is the next worrying statement that we have from Google, that the technology will be open to partner studios. The concerning word here is the word partners. This indicates that there's going to be some sort of vetting process. Now, a vetting process is fine and totally reasonable, except that Google has had some very worrying statements lately regarding politics, censorship, and dissenting voices and that sort of thing. It's no secret that Silicon Valley leans left on the political spectrum. If you're liberal, that's fine, you do you, whatever. The main problem is that currently, the left is not big on tolerating or even entertaining any form of dissenting opinions. A vetting process for partner game developers makes sense. The worrying part comes in with the potential for a partner process that requires ideological conformity to Google's ideals. What this does is it means it's going to create a slew of left-leaning games and developers that have this huge platform to put their games out on. And any centrist or conservative or any type of political leaning, they're not going to have the competitive advantage of putting their games onto Google Stadia. Let's face it, Google Stadia is it's going to be huge. Anything that Google does pretty much works out with the exception of Google+. So not being on Google Stadia is going to put any sort of game developer at a huge disadvantage. something to the point where they might conform their ideals or they might change their game in order to get through the vetting process. And that's really concerning when you have a platform that's so expansive, but you have to conform to certain ideological requirements in order to get your game on there. Issue number 6, there's the potential for the technology to only be open to partner creators. We just talked about the issue of partner studios. Now, there's an obvious natural outcome that there might be a class of partner creators on YouTube that are able to use Stadia. It's not far-fetched to think that Google might approve creators to use some or all or really any of their features of Stadia unless they go through some sort of, again, vetting process through YouTube. This is not stated in the reveal. This is not something that they've explicitly said, but it's honestly not too far-fetched of an idea. It's really a logical conclusion to many of the decisions that Google and YouTube have been making lately to more protect and shelter their content on their platform. Honestly, I think it would be a really, really, really stupid move on their part, but it's possible and it could happen, and it would really suck. Issue number 7 is the death of modding. This is near and dear to my heart because my channel lives off of modded Skyrim. That's what I do. And many games are kept alive by dedicated modding communities. With game data stored on the cloud, there's a really good chance that modding is largely just going to die out on Google Stadia, and this is bad for everyone. Players don't get to mod and customize their experience and play a game that they love even longer and in different ways. Developers don't get the benefit of a community that persists for years and years and years. Normally, a game will sell primarily in its first few months of release. Games that have modding communities have the potential to stick around and to sell for a lot longer and maintain a lot larger revenue. And obviously, Google loses out on revenue through the revenue share with Google Stadia, and they probably lose out on a lot of player data as well. Not having modding would be a really big loss for Google Stadia. Google Stadia needs to make a way for modding to happen, otherwise it truly won't be a platform for everybody. Issue number 8 is obvious. With the advent of one streaming service, this paves the way for more streaming services. Do you like 15 streaming services for your TV and movies? Probably not, because I don't. Well, Stadia opens the way for Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Steam, and Epic, at minimum, to all develop their own same idea. They'll either join Stadia or they'll create their own variant of it. This is a problem because I already have too many platforms that I need to manage with Steam, Origin, Good Old Games, Itch, all sorts of stuff. I'm just going to have even more games splintered across more platforms. Just let me own my games. That's really what I want. I want to own my own games. I want to control my own games. Just give me the ability to own my own games. Issue number 9 is the third scary phrase that I picked out of the entire presentation, and that is that the data center is your platform. Again, this is a presentation to developers to try and get them attracted to putting their games onto Google Stadia. Sure, this means that developers get to use the power of Google, which is really cool. It also means that they get to use the power of Google, which is really scary. This means that game developers could potentially harvest the information about player habits and behaviors in their game because they have access to the data centers, and then patch their games to monetize you to death. The other issue is that having access to this data means that the developers have the ability to change the way that they design their games from the ground up to further pick our pockets and further monetize what they're already supposed to be giving us. This is already happening with very prominent games like Dead or Alive 6, which recently came out. The same thing is going to happen here if game developers are given too much access to data on their platform. They can see player behavior, they can rig their games in order to encourage further monetization and bankrupt a lot of people. The 10th issue that we have with Google Stadia is that there are very few games to show right now. Google had a lot of partners to show in the presentation, but they didn't have a lot of games. As of right now, it's just Doom Eternal and Assassin's Creed Origins to show off on their platform. There are dozens of really well-made games that use Havoc as a part of their engine. Destiny 2, Detroit Become Human, Halo 5, Far Cry 5, Far Cry New Dawn, Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild, No Man's Sky, Uncharted 4, and tons more. These games are already built on Havoc, so why wouldn't Google get more developers on board with Stadia so that the launch didn't seem so barren? It really seemed very barren. It had Doom Eternal and a couple quote-unquote potential future projects from some smaller developers. It didn't have anything really robust to show off. It was a very weak display, actually. Making just one of these games free on release day would be a massive deal. That would have really sealed the deal for a lot of people, and it would be a big boost for the developer, and the developer would get tons of free publicity for their upcoming games and projects. This is a huge missed opportunity and is honestly very concerning when it comes to Stadia, given that it's supposed to launch sometime this year. The Google Stadia reveal was a technological marvel. Some of the stuff that they put in there was really cool, but a lot of the things that they implied or said were also extremely concerning. Until we have more information about these concerns, it's best that we treat the Stadia announcement with a lot of skepticism. Question: did you watch the Stadia reveal? If yes, leave a comment down below on what you're most worried about. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more gaming content. We'll see you again soon here on AP Games.